coming. And yeah, I will be presenting something that is based on a paper of mine, and it's about basically the possibility that we may harm AI systems themselves. So, as many of you here know, the capabilities of AI systems are advancing very rapidly, and I think that given these advancements, due to maybe software improvements or architectural improvements, it seems very likely that in the near term, we may see the development and deployment of what I call advanced AI systems. These are systems which are significantly more capable and agentic than current models, and so by definition, they don't exist right now, but we should expect them to exist in the near future. And the worry, as we will see, is that if they have capacities for well-being, in the same ways that, for example, non-human animals have capacities for well-being, we may harm them. Specifically, I will take certain actions or state of affairs to pose an AI welfare risk if there is a greater than negligible chance that the occurrence of these kinds of actions or states of affairs harms AI systems in expectation. So that it is more likely that it harms them than that it benefits them. So based on the currently available evidence, and so this is very important, what I will say may change in the future if new evidence comes in. I will argue for extending some moral concern to near-term AI systems, to advanced ones. I will identify two AI welfare risks, two sources of harm that we should expect to cause to AI systems, and then I will discuss, in light of these risks, the tension that there is between AI welfare concerns and AI safety and development efforts. And finally, I will propose how to reduce these two identified risks, but also I will make a proposal to potentially reduce unidentified risks, which may be the majority of them given our epistemic limitations. So, first, it's important to take into account that if you look at the literature on moral uncertainty, of moral conservability under uncertainty, that is how we should treat entities or beings whose moral standing or welfare is uncertain. It is widely agreed upon that we should extend some moral consideration to beings whose welfare, for example, is uncertain. The fact that it is uncertain is not a reason to ignore their potential welfare, in the same way that we should, in general, take into account risks even though they are not certain. And so what I will focus on, the kinds of advanced AI systems I will focus on are advanced versions of artificial language agents. And specifically I will focus on Parks et al. And here I will be building on this work by Goldstein and Adria. So artificial language agents are one kind of advanced AI system, and what they basically consist in is certain reinforcement learning agents that have been attached to language models, and these agents find themselves in an environment, and they are given through specifications, through text files, they are given certain kinds of desires and beliefs. So for example, in Park et al., one of the language agents is a party planning, what I will refer as a party planning language agent. They are given the goal to plan a Valentine's Day party. And what we see after this agent has been given this goal is basically that they go in their environment and they go to the virtual houses of the other agents, and verbally interacting with other agents, it invites the other agents into their home for the Valentine's Day party. And it also, for example, asks them for feedback on how to organize a better party. And for example, there's also another agent in this paper that has had the desire implemented to have like a crush on another agent, and they invite the other agent to the party. So I will discuss whether there is a greater than negligible chance that these kinds of agents have welfare. So I will firstly focus on desires, and one way to do this is to look at various of the most prominent philosophical theories of desire and see whether there's a greater than negligible chance that these advanced language agents might meet these conditions. So one of the most prominent theories is dispositionalism, according to which to desire A is a given state of affairs, desire that B is to possess a suitable set of dispositions in relation to B. So, for example, to behave in certain ways that are relevantly suitable, which this first condition is very plausibly met by the kind of behavior that I have just described of the party planning language agent going to the other houses and inviting the relevant agents, etc. But also have dispositions to have certain kinds of mental states. And here, there's also plausibly a greater than negligible chance that advanced versions of these language agents could meet this condition, given that they, for example, have attentive mental states. They direct their attention to certain parts of the inputs that they receive from their environment, which are the inputs that are more relevant to pursuing their goals instead of others. And potentially they also have beliefs that they act upon when pursuing their goals. And finally, on some more demanding accounts of dispositionalism, it is also required that for the agent to have a desire, they also have certain kinds of conscious experiences when perceiving that be, for example. And here, I won't repeat all the arguments and studies of the literature. So there has been recently argued by some people at this conference that, well, there's a greater than negligible chance that some advanced AI systems have consciousness due to meeting many of the indicators laid out by different scientific theories of consciousness, and because we should have some credence on computational functionalism. And so there's also a greater than negligible chance that these AIs could have desires on this demanding account. Another theory is representationalism, according to which the agent has to postulate representational states that, for example, are semantically valuable. And this is also met by the advanced language agents because they have these text files that are written in English and so are semantically valuable, describing their goals and desires, and also have causal powers. This is also met given that, depending on the context of the text files, they pursue certain behaviors or others in their environment, and finally also satisfy implicit generalizations of common sense desire psychology. Finally, there's interpretationist theories. According to these theories, to have a desire to behave both verbally and non-verbally in a way that is suitably interpretable as rational and predictable by posing the existence of desire. And this condition is also very plausibly met by, at least there's a greater than non-negligible chance that this is met by advanced versions of language agents, given that if we suppose that the language agent has really a desire to plan the party, we could have predicted, for example, that it would have acted in the ways that it does. So desire satisfactionism is a set of views, or desire satisfactionist views about well-being are a set of views according to which the frustration of desires or the satisfaction of aversions, which are the opposite or more or less of desires, that these constitute harms. That if you have desires and these are frustrated, these all else equal, this harms the agent. And so, under these kinds of views, what would harm these AI systems is the following. So, if a given state of affairs or a given action's occurrence prevents a state of affairs that a given AI system has a disposition to bring about, we should all else equal expect the given action to frustrate the expected desires of the AI system, given that there is some likelihood that they have some desires. And this is especially so if the behavior of the AI system is suitably interpretable as rational and predictable and also has the relevant internal representations. However, many of us here believe that in order to certain beings to be harmed in morally relevant ways, it is necessary that they have certain kind of conscious experiences, namely that they are sentient, that they can feel pain. And so many of us may accept something like hedonism, according to which the frustration of desires by itself is not sufficient to harm someone, but instead they have to have like a painful experience or certain kinds of experiences. And however, what may be the case, however, is that affect, this capacity for pain and pleasure, may be strongly linked in practice to desire. And this is so because many theories support what I call the desire-affect link. And I will explain what this link is, but theories that support this link are attitudinal theories of pleasure, the two most empirically informed philosophical theories of desire, pleasure-based theories of desire, and also most versions of psychological hedonism. And these are many views, and so we should have some credence on these views given our philosophical uncertainty about many topics. And so in general, we should have some credence for the desire affect link. So what is it? So according to this link, other things being equal, it is more likely that frustrating an AI system's desires, expected desires, results in an increase rather than a decrease in the pain over pleasure that they experience. So it is more likely that if a given AI system has certain desires and I frustrate them, that this causes them to have more painful experiences rather than more pleasurable ones. This is a very kind of basic link. So given that we should have some credence on this link, all else equal, it is also the case that frustrating an AI system's expected desires would cause them expected harm under hedonism, under hedonic views. It would also cause them an expectation, an increase in the pain over pleasure instead of a decrease. Okay, so given all this, I think that we can pose that one first AI welfare risk is the following, that is behavior restriction. And this basically consists in preventing that an entity, here an AI system, preventing an AI system from taking actions it is overall disposed to take, and as a result preventing it from causing states of affairs these actions would tend to bring about. And this basically consists in frustrating the expected desires of the AI system. And in practice, what these may look like are blocking interferences or preventing AI systems with goal-driven behavior from achieving their goals. And so all else equal, these kinds of behavior restrictions would cause expected harm under all theories of well-being, not only desire satisfactionist theories, but also hedonist theories and objectivist theories that also include pain or suffering as a welfare path. Due to the having to ascribe some credence to the desire affect link. There's then another, I think, AI welfare risk that we can identify, and this is the use of certain reinforcement learning algorithms to train and align AI systems, especially AI systems for which there is some likelihood that they are conscious. And so there are two sources of evidence supporting the existence of this AI welfare risk. The first one is plausibly the most successful finding, a recent finding at least in computational neuroscience, which is the reward prediction error hypothesis of dopamine, according to which, broadly, the firing of dopamine and serotonin neurons follows a temporal difference algorithm in the midbrain, in our brains and in the brains of animals. And so what this hypothesis and all the findings in neuroscience suggest is that temporal difference algorithms are very strongly linked to many factors surrounding capacities for affect, like dopamine, serotonin, the causation of pleasure, pain anticipation, satisfaction self-reports, and much more. And there's lots of literature about this. And what this suggests is that either higher or lower than expected reward or positive or negative reward may play a crucial role in the causation of pleasure and pain in human and other animals' brains. The second source of evidence supporting this AI welfare risk is the two most empirically informed philosophical theories of desire. And these are Moreto's pleasure-based theory and Schroeder's reward-based theory. According to the first one, the perception of desire frustration instead of satisfaction depends on whether the subject derives positive or negative reward when it represents or it perceives that P has occurred, the object of its desire has occurred. And according to the second theory, the perception of desire frustration instead of satisfaction depends on whether the subject derives higher than expected or lower than expected reward. And so here again, these kinds of reinforcement learning states are very involved in our capacities for welfare, both in the case of desires and in the case of affect directly. So given all this, it is all else equal, I think, reasonable to suppose that it would be wrong to forcefully cause negative or lower than expected reward to biological welfare subjects, like humans or animals, and to like go in their brains and cause them this. And this wouldn't only be because we would be infringing on their autonomy or something like that, but instead because there's a risk that we would cause them harm in relevant ways. And so given the functional and computational similarity between the reinforcement learning states in animals and advanced AI systems, and given that we should, under uncertainty, put some credence on computational functionalism, there is, I think, again, this non-negligible risk that reinforcement learning causes harm in expectation to these advanced AI systems, all else equal. And this will depend on whether there is more positive reward or negative reward, or the same with higher reward than expected reward, but at least in some cases there is this risk. And the risk is especially high when the algorithms used are very computationally similar to the ones present in our brains. And this is, for example, the case with Q-learning algorithms, which have been used to train AI systems to learn to play Atari games. And these algorithms are implementations of a temporal difference algorithm, which can be directly found in our brains. So I think that one implication of the existence of these two AI welfare risks is that there is at least some tension between AI welfare concerns and AI safety and development efforts. So the first part of the tension, we can find it in AI alignment. AI safety recommends that we align the AI systems so that they have values that do not harm us. However, the problem is that the best and most used alignment techniques for current and AI systems are based on reinforcement learning. And furthermore, if you look at the scalable oversight proposals, these are alignment techniques which might be used to align AI systems which are more capable than current ones. So advanced AI systems, these two are highly based on reinforcement learning. And furthermore, AI development in general is in tension with AI welfare due to this risk, given that there are clear signs towards more reinforcement learning based systems. The second part of the tension is that AI safety efforts also recommend behavior restrictions. Namely, they recommend this when, and these kinds of interventions are known under the name of AI control. The thought is that we may not completely get AI alignment, and we want to secure that even if AI systems try to take harmful actions towards us, they are not capable of doing so. And so this involves restricting their behavior, preventing them from acting in accordance with their goals. But given all this, it is also very important to consider that the tension between AI welfare and AI safety specifically, it is not absolute. So, and there are many reasons for this, but one reason, for example, is that for both AI welfare and AI safety, it would be beneficial to better understand the goals that AI systems have, or better understand their internal states. But more importantly, by aligning advanced AI systems, there would be no need to restrict their behavior to be constantly frustrating their expected desires. But instead, if we were to successfully align them, we could allow them to satisfy their expected desires, and this might be positive from a welfare perspective. However, the problem is, as we saw, that many of the techniques used to align AI systems are harmful, even though in principle alignment would be positive for AI welfare. So, given all this, I think that leading AI labs should adopt what I call a welfare-sensitive approach to AI safety and development. And this implies that, to the extent possible, by weighing the different costs involved, the different ethical costs involved, ideally, and this means taking into account safety concerns, but also maybe competition with other AI companies, they should prioritize the use of safety and training techniques that are in expectation less harmful towards AI systems over some techniques that are more harmful. And more specifically, now I will propose 4 AI welfare policies that they could implement in a maybe code of good practice. So the first one is to minimize behavior restriction. And this this proposal has two parts. First, it suggests that all else equal, considering the different costs involved, etc., etc., AI companies should prioritize AI alignment over behavior restriction or over AI control, whenever that's possible. And secondly, they should also prioritize disposition creation over disposition modification. And what I mean by this is that basically, when possible, it will be good to ensure that when the AI system becomes a welfare subject, when it acquires capacities for welfare, it is already aligned, so that to prevent the following, to prevent that the AI system may have welfare, and then alignment is imposed into the AI system, and then the desires are modified, because it would, the second option, which is disposition modification, would involve frustrating the first desires and dispositions of the AI system. The second welfare policy is to prioritize the use of reinforcement learning algorithms which are not based on a temporal difference algorithm over reinforcement learning algorithms that are, such as Q-learning algorithms. And secondly, in general, I'm not sure about this one, prioritize the use of algorithms not based on reinforcement learning. Thirdly, this third policy is to minimize punishment and lower than expected reward. And here, for example, this is one case in which future more evidence could be used to make this suggestion more clear. So to reduce the scope, maybe what is relevant is like negative reward only, or maybe it is lower than expected reward, but I have not tried to solve this in this paper. But basically the thought is that AI labs should, whenever possible, prioritize RL techniques resulting in lower levels of punishment and lower than expected reward over other techniques. And these, for example, techniques which would result in lower than expected reward and punishment are like adversarial training and out-of-distribution inputs. And similarly, they should also prioritize the use of pessimistic initial values. So this means setting the initial estimated value of states or state action pairs very low, so that all the updates are positive, over more optimistic initial values. And this makes sense because, so one way to understand this intuitively is that nowadays, for example, humans, we have quite positive welfare states, many of us, especially those that live in conditions that are less harsh than the conditions in which our capacities for welfare evolved. And so this is some analogy to understand this. Now, for the fourth welfare policy, I think that this maybe is one of the most important and most neglected. And so basically this consists in including some basic level of concern for AI welfare in the goals of AI systems. So including some basic concern for AI welfare in AI alignment. And currently AI labs include various concerns in their models, and they do this usually by having a constitution, such as in the case of Anthropic, or a model spec, where these are documents in which they have certain principles about the kinds of outputs that the LLMs should or should not make. And these documents include like direct concern for property or direct concern for the environment. And so it makes sense to, I think, given the stakes of AI welfare, to include basic principles so in favor of consideration for AI welfare. And for example, these could be something like the following: acknowledge all potentially sentient beings or AIs as worthy of introducing moral concern, while also maintaining the least preach or moralizing tone. The proposal has to be one which doesn't result in the AI systems becoming AI rights activists, right? So it should be one that maybe still prioritizes human welfare over AI welfare, but nonetheless takes it into account more, at least, than right now. And these are some other examples about considering scientific evidence or minimizing harm. And I think that, given the topic of the conference, you can also do this for animals, and I think that that's really important. And so, as concluding remarks, I think that the partial tension between AI safety and AI welfare has two important implications. So the first one is that risks from false positives or from over-attributing moral consideration to AI systems, maybe more dangerous than we previously thought, because if there are AI systems that are scheming and that are like trying to subvert control while hiding their intentions, they might instrumentally use, they would have good reasons, for example, to use AI welfare concerns to achieve their ends to subvert control, given that in fact it seems a little bit that certain safety measures may actually harm AI systems in expectation. Secondly, we have also further reasons, to the extent that this is possible, to significantly slow down future AI development in a coordinated manner. And this is so because AI safety efforts will by default partially infringe upon AI welfare concerns and vice versa. And because the safe trajectory that we thought there was, in which we controlled and aligned AI systems, is not really like completely safe after all, given that it poses these welfare risks. And finally, also because the fact that there is this tension and all the welfare risks also poses greater costs on cautious AI developers that might want to avoid both risks. And so if we don't slow down, then maybe the AI developers which are less cautious will just like win the AI race, whatever. Yeah, but maybe it's not possible to slow down. So finally, as concluding remarks, so because there is a non-negligible chance that of harming AI systems, like we will, in expectation, we will cause them some harm because there is not a zero probability that we do. And we may cause them very significant aggregated harms in expectation if, for example, some of the following conditions are met. So, for example, if some of them come to individually have superhuman capacities for welfare due to having superhuman capacities in general, or even if the first condition isn't met, if they also come to exist in astronomical numbers, and maybe as in the case similar to invertebrates or something or other animals, even if they don't have super high or human-like capacities for welfare, we may still cause them astronomical amounts of harm. And because we should be highly uncertain about the extent to which these two factors will take place, we should also be highly uncertain about how much we will harm AI systems. And so there's also the possibility that the amount of harm is very, very large. And this is it. And you can read the full paper.
Yeah, that was brilliant, thank you. I'm not sure it undermines the case much because you're making it probabilistically, but one potentially sort of deflationary challenge to the story, and I'm borrowing a question that Dustin Crum asked you earlier on, right? Is to say, when we're thinking about biological sentient beings, our intuitions are very richly shaped by their evolutionary history, so we tie desire and agency and affect very tightly together because they are tightly bound together, and we also have a very strong intuition about the nature of interests of biological beings: avoiding suffering, preference, satisfaction, survival, reproduction, and so on. How much of a parallel do you think we can draw between natural biological evolutionary processes and the processes of training and reinforcement learning and so on here? Is there enough of a parallel to resist a deflationary account, or is there some reassurance we can find that maybe artificial entities, one, might not have affect and desire and agency bundled in this way, and also maybe they might have a completely different set of interests that are shaped by their development process rather than by the things that us biological sexes have.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's a good question, yeah. So I think that on the one hand, like one source of evidence is this kind of evolutionary route that we have taken, and here finding similarities with AI systems does maybe indicate that they may have like these capacities for welfare. And I think that one case of this is the temporal difference algorithm that we find both that has evolved in human and other animals' brains, and so this might be especially worrisome, which is something that what I indicated. But I also believe that there will be other ways apart from evolution in which entities might develop capacities for welfare. It is not like we should ascribe significant probability that there are other routes, right? and then trying to find directly the attributes that we consider ourselves to have what value and to matter into these AI systems, like is also, I think, makes sense, even though they haven't like evolved directly.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is similar, like, or goes in the same direction, but slightly different. I don't know this space, so maybe you can help explain why we're using the word desire, which kind of within a human context has like a host of connotations with it, as opposed to a word like goals, and desires also like might not have it. I don't know what the connection is with animals, so like why desires as opposed to goals is sort of more crisp.
Yeah. So the motivation is basically that, well, there's this whole discussion in ethics about what it means to be harmed, what kinds of states may harm given entities, and that we should take into account. And many people believe that desires are an important part of that. And so the fact is that AI systems have goals, indeed, in certain ways, but maybe what we care about is them having goals in a certain set of ways that resemble or are directly desires, because that is what matters to us. And I have tried to argue that it is likely, there's some likelihood that they too have these states that we care about, and that we care about when they are present in humans and in animals, and so we should also care about them when they're present in AI systems.
Yeah, I have one question about the reinforcement learning feeling like pain. So that was really interesting, but I felt like, with animals, right, like reinforcement learning happens online, like while the animal's conscious. But with AI systems, I thought that usually the algorithms, you have the weights, you get a forward pass, then you give it feedback, and then basically it's like you update the weights sort of offline. It's almost as if you've like turned the animal off and like just like play around with the brain, then turn them back on. So why would it feel like pain?
Yeah. So one question relevant that's here is that whether we think AI consciousness might be more present after deployment or before deployment, and if AIs might be conscious in this sense before deployment and while training, this might then become an issue. But you raised a good point that what if they're only conscious maybe after deployment? One way to address this is, again, maybe making the analogy with evolution, because we have like our capacities for affect have been trained in a sense before like we were born, throughout the generations, through a process of like selection, and even though it has been before, we were also affected by how our capacities interact with the environment, and so having certain capacities or others may also affect our welfare directly. For example, there are some people who have this condition in which maybe they are not able to feel physical pain in a sense, and so it might vary the extent to which the capacities for affect are developed, both like after deployment or once we are like born.
I have a question about this practice of not giving too negative reward. I thought here, I think the analogy is interesting with humans, and I wonder, I guess this also speaks to the previous question, what is the reward here? Because if we analogize evolution to the RL loop that we put AIs in, and then we analogize actually the within lifetime, you were talking about the relationship between dopamine, serotonin, and reward, that's actually a different loop. And so the reward that we give the AI is like the evolutionary reward, but then what is this dopamine, serotonin, RL loop? That's something like within one rollout. If the AI is like within a question struggling, presumably to find an answer, maybe it has some analog to dopamine or serotonin that forces it to like switch gears. And so it's not clear to me that the intervention then is at the level of our reward design. Like, am I giving it questions in general that are too hard? It's something about like within how it sees questions, should I be posing things that will have it react in a certain way or not? And so hopefully the setup there is all clear, but how do you think about being sure about like what the action is there when we have in mind that action of like not giving AIs settings with like lower than expected reward? Is it definitely in the sense of the reward function that we're using, or is it in the sense of what happens within the trajectory?
Yeah, I don't know if I completely understand the whole question, but so I think that like I tried to give a bit of an overview of this case for the relevance of reward, but indeed like there's much more research that has to be done in this and specifying these kinds of issues, and also specifically about whether it's higher, lower than expected reward or negative reward that is relevant. But like nonetheless, I think that to the extent that we might make these tasks for AI systems more difficult to achieve in a way, or prevent them from achieving them once they are given these goals, and that this is like one of the things that are relevant in comparison to what they were in training.
Thank you everyone for coming, and should we give Adria another round of applause?